Welcome back, my lords and ladies, to the Cast Beyond the Wall. We are your guide to all things Westerosi, and we're here to bring you a review, analysis, and fan v fan debate on each episode of HBO's Game of Thrones successor series, House of the Dragon. In today's discussion, we're going to provide our initial review of the House of the Dragon Season 1, Episode 5. We light the way before providing a breakdown of the story, and then we're going to close out the show by, firstly, determining who won, who lost, and who the wild card player for next week is. And we're going to speculate a little bit about what might happen next week. As always, I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and at long last, we have found our mustache-twirling Veil Queen killer. He has arrived in the show. I've been waiting for my Peter Baelish return, and little did we know, it was Daemon all along. Can't wait to elaborate on that further. Man, what a great episode of TV. But joining me from the Riverlands of Southern Illinois, sir, introduce yourself.
I am Daniel Stoll, and I just have to say, I think I really want something I really want from Game of Thrones. It's just, I want one wedding to just go smoothly. Like, could we imagine like a Game of Thrones wedding to like not be like awful? I just there's so much, we can have so much love in the air, I just want to see some love in the air, but no, we always have to have everything go to shit at the last second. So maybe one day.
Daniel, what the hell do you think this is about hobbits and elves or something? There's another show right next door if you want to check it out that has weddings like that, I'm sure.
Unfortunately, that show is just not doing it for me, so I have to find it somewhere else.
Well, I didn't call it the spicy wedding last week for nothing. Fire plus blood wedding equals spicy wedding, in my opinion. So I'm just going to continue to call it the spicy wedding. I'm sure the internet's already called it some other colored wedding. But yes, episode 5 featured a prominent wedding. And it was, in fact, very, very intensely spicy, like deserved to be on the Hot Ones YouTube series. With all that said, I am so excited because this episode of The Cast Beyond the Wall may be one of the most epic crossovers we've ever done, because we're not bringing you one guest. We're not bringing you two guests. We're bringing 3 triple threat guests, because we are bringing the entire Red 6 podcast to the table on the Cast Beyond the Wall. What? Now, you might be asking yourself, yeah, go ahead. That's right. You can hear the thousands of fans shouting out here for the Red 6 podcast. And maybe you're listening and saying, hey, I only listen to House of the Dragons podcast, and I do have people in my life who are like that. And you're like, tell me about the Red 6 podcast. So the Red 6 podcast, imagine a show about House of the Dragon, but also about movies, and also about video games, and also about board games, and also about cons, and also about Canada road trips. All of those things can be found on the Red 6 podcast, and I'm so excited to welcome 3 of the hosts this week. I'm going to start with my doppelganger. I also frequently, we crossed paths in 2016, in which he established himself as Caleb Alpha, but I'm also coined myself Caleb Omega, the end. Caleb Haldane, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you very much. This is, Caleb Haldane from House Haldane. We pay the maple price. It's not as severe as the iron price, but it's quite sweet.
The maple price. So instead of fire and blood, or the murdering your cousins or whatever, you guys just give hugs and maple syrup.
Yeah, lots of donuts. The maple days. Real nice.
God, I love comedians, including you, Caleb. All right. Well, that, ladies and gentlemen, that is Caleb Haldane. So yes, there are 2 Calebs for the price of 1 this week. Next up, we have the second host of the Red 6 podcast, Nick Johnson. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Woo! They're all cheering. I just want to say this, Masters. Take me to Dragonstone and make me your wife. This was an exciting episode to be on. I can't say if you're excited to have us here or disappointed to have us here on such a pinnacle episode, but I do have one little bit of pushback I need to throw out there real quick. Your descriptor of our podcast was close, but you didn't include that every 10 years we have a Mortal Kombat to save Earthrealm from Outworld. It's really important that you listen and watch our show, because otherwise we might lose.
Every year this decade feels like we're at the 10-year epic battle of the destiny for the fate of the planet. So
absolutely.
And Nick, is the demand or the tickets in demand these days?
Oh, all the time. We're on Ticketmaster, all the places you can get scalped at.
So that's right. If you want more of the Epic Trial by Combat podcasts, Red 6 podcast. But last, but certainly not least, we have a man who is a man of many talents here, because not only is he one of the hosts of the Red 6 podcast, but he's also a Twitch streamer for the Gutter Nerds Twitch channel. Steve-O.
Hi, how's it
Gutter
going?
Nerd.
I am a little bummed that we weren't introduced as the Triarchy. Just like,
Oh, shit.
it was right there. And
Are you the crab feeder? You're talking way too much if you are. Get out of here.
yes, yeah, I
He's
probably
eating crabs.
feel that
He's
way.
eating crabs right now. Listeners, I know this is an audio only medium, but crabs are being consumed, and he's also feeding other things to other crabs.
Right. If you want to get a sense of like what the Red 6 podcast is like, Caleb is surrounded by tech, Nick is surrounded by like retro paraphernalia, and I eat crab and lobster and look down upon them from my ivory tower.
I love watching it. I love to hear it. I love to hear it. Everyone's got to have someone feasting on crab and the flesh of their mortal enemies.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
Well, Steve-O, welcome to the show. So glad to have you on today.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here. I've been a fan of yours, Caleb. Caleb Omega. Just I needed to make that super clear, because the other Caleb will run with it if I don't. And I'm super, super excited to be on your show for the first time. I don't know if the other guys have been on a show of yours before.
It's took long enough for us to arrange it. Mostly, I've been on their show. I'm just going to confess, full stop. I am a bad trader of services, cross promotion. They have been so kind as to invite me on to their show, and I haven't invited them to my show until today. This has been what? That's crossed add the one, crossed the 8 years in the making. Come on. But I'm glad we finally got here. Sorry it took me so long, guys. Sometimes I just get a little behind the times. And Steve-O, thanks for the kind words. Really a big fan of what you do over on Twitch. Guys, Steve-O, if you're a Star Wars fan of any sort, the thing I like about you, Steve-O, is you kind of like reach all of the Star Wars fans, people who have been around for a while, who like the retro games, but you also hit on some of the more modern games. His channel is dedicated to Star Wars streams, among other things. Steve-O, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I have been streaming for a really long time. I think I've been streaming in different forms for somewhere in the 8 to 10 year range now. But we used to do a thing called Star Wars Month, and I just had so much fun with it that I was like, you know what? There's enough content there. I'd really like to just live in Star Wars for a while. And I was hesitant to do it because Star Wars rhetoric, as you know, can get really messy, and we've been able to cultivate a really decently good area where we can talk about things without and everybody listens to each other and bring in. I've had people come in and go, I literally just watched a Star Wars for the first time. I'm like, oh, great. Or what order should I watch the rest of the movies in? Great question. So it's super open and welcome.
Yeah, you guys do a great job you do a great job at sort of tailoring, really cultivating, I would say, a community and a culture in your community where people are willing to have the conversation both with you and in the chat. But there's also room for both me and Caleb Haldane to give you shit when you're playing Shadows of the Empire and getting your ass kicked by Boba Fett.
I forgot about that.
So yes, listeners, if you have any passing interest in Star Wars, or whether you're a former Star Wars fan, reformed Star Wars fan, whatever, because there's a lot of different types of Star Wars fans, or you're casual. Anyway, there's a space for you over at the Gutter Nerds channel, as well as on the Red 6 podcast. All right, well, now that you know the players in today's game of podcasts, you can track all of our posts here at the Cast Beyond the Wall on our main social media channels, including Twitter at cast_beyond_GOT, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Cast Beyond the Wall. And I'm going to put you guys on. I'm going to put the heat on real quick, guys. You didn't know this was coming. Pop quiz. Nick, have you rated and reviewed the Cast Beyond the Wall on your preferred podcast app?
Wow, that is
no pressure.
That is hot. Let me take some of the Smirnoff Ice real quick to cool that.
Nick, you're letting me down here because I was sure that Smirnoff would in fact be one of the key sponsors of the Mortal Kombat that would determine the fate of the Earth. I was pretty sure that was a key partnership, was it not?
Moonshine. We moved to Moonshine. They thought it was more on brand with what we do. Smirnoff was like, we make money. That's not how we want to roll. And so, yeah, we're sponsored exclusively by Moonshine. And honestly, we're open to, more Moonshine sponsors out there. It's really going to be our new thing.
I'll take Moonshine sponsors as well. If you're a Moonshine producer out there, a couple podcasts I can recommend. But see, Nick, this was a very clever way for you to divert attention away from my question here.
Sorry.
So did you rate and review the podcast?
You asked me did I rate this 5 stars? No, I have not, because I will not until they added another star, until it's 6 stars, because that's what Cast Beyond the Wall deserves.
My heart. Yeah. Thank you, sir. You're a gentleman and a scholar. Thank you. Listeners, don't be like Nick. I mean, I appreciate the generosity is so helpful. I love it so much. The sentiment, the words give me that morale boost to get me through the 10-week stretch of Game of Thrones episodes. But also, if you don't rate it, it doesn't help me. So, you do that thing. You go, it takes like 30 seconds. You pull up Apple Podcast on your phone, and you give it the 5-star, and maybe you say Caleb Omega greater than Caleb Alpha. That's your review. That's it. Yeah. It's going to help us get discovered by more lords and ladies of the realm, just like you.
Do not do it.
Next up here, just want to make this quick disclaimer for those of you who are tuning in for the first time. We are not going to be spoiling anything that happens on future episodes of House of the Dragon. We may talk somewhat cryptically about the next time on. Those already tend to be pretty cryptic anyway. But if there is any knowledge of things that happen in the future via Fire and Blood, the novel, or I guess you could call it a novel, we're not going to be talking about that. So just want to put that out there. And I think, quick question here, actually, survey. Has anyone here other than me even started Fire and Blood by George R. R. Martin?
I have not.
No.
Is that also a podcast?
Fire and Blood. I mean, it should be. That's the book. It's a book, okay. but it is on an audiobook form, so you could listen to it like a podcast.
Does Gilbert Gottfried read it? Because I only listen to Gilbert Gottfried read audiobooks.
It's all he loves. It's the only one he loves.
I hate to say this, Steve-O, but those are in demand anymore because we no longer have any more of the Gilbert Gottfried left. So we are
what?
He's just Andy Kaufmaning us. He's around.
Last but certainly not least here, I just wanted to acknowledge this, because I don't know if it pertains to the specific recap section of the show, but this is the final episode of the House of the Dragon, which is featuring the young Rhaenyra, played by Millie Alcock, and also the young Alicent Hightower, played by Emily Carey. Again, I just want to call that out because as Daniel Stoll and other previous guests have talked about, holy crap, they're really good. Like, they're really strong performances, and like they're so good that I know we're going to move on to different actors and actresses in those roles in the next episode, but they're going to be missed. I just, again, we only had 5 episodes to make an impression, but quite the impression they made.
I did not know that, and that's a bummer to hear. Truth be told, because I don't watch the next time on. I wish those didn't exist. I avoid them. Like, I'm 5 episodes in. I'm going to watch your 6th fucking episode, dude. You don't have to sell me on it.
Well, sorry to spoil next week's episode then, but more to give you a little bit of a warning. I promise I won't spoil any plot points. Yeah. But there's been about I will say, I think there's a 10-year. We've talked a lot about time jumps on this podcast because there tend to be those between most episodes. And I think next week there's going to be a 10-year time jump between episodes. So different actresses. All right. Really quick, gentlemen, from the Red 6 podcast. This is the first time you guys are on this show and first time talking about House of the Dragon. So I'm going to turn it to Steve-O first. What have you thought of House of the Dragon so far?
I'm glad you turned it to me because I haven't spoken much this episode, and I just thought it would be great to get my thoughts out there. I'm joking. I'm just messing with you. I can't shut up. So I will be brief.
I know.
I really like it a lot and for 2 reasons. One, I only watched through season 6 of Game of Thrones. Last thing I saw was Cersei blowing up King's Landing, and I just went, oh, she won. And then I stopped watching.
It's a great place to stop.
I was like, a great place. That's the best place to stop.
It ends. You see Daenerys crossing the sea, and you're like, all right, that wasn't ending. That was incredible.
Fantastic. I hope they all did well after that.
Wow.
This show, I started a little bit hesitant because I didn't finish the previous series and had heard so many things about the end of the series, but I think that this show, I don't mind the time jumps at all. I think when you have an epic story to tell, you're probably going to have to. But the fact that it's more focused, they're mentioning the Hightowers and the Lannisters and so on and so forth, but we're focused on a family, and that is so helpful to me. I understand that it is a bit antithetical to what the Game of Thrones is, but I just much prefer that focus.
So you like that we're spending more time with fewer characters and fewer locations versus, checking in with one character for like maybe 5 minutes of an episode, right?
Absolutely.
Because say 8 locations.
When I started watching Game of Thrones probably 3 or 4 seasons in, and I had to have someone who had read the books next to me so I can go, okay, who's that? And where are they from? And where's that? Okay. And who's that? What were they talking about? Was it like, I needed all and I don't need that with House of the Dragon.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you needed this podcast back then. I'm sad to hear you don't need it anymore. But I really appreciate that you were there for us in the early days.
Yeah, very much so.
Great. So Steve-O is a fan. Caleb Haldane, turning it to you. What have you thought of House of the Dragon season 1?
Yeah, I think I'm completely on the opposite end of the spectrum from Steve-O here, where I feel that Game of Thrones really changed storytelling initially in that, like, it's political intrigue where the stakes are really, really high. And we're back to this storytelling where the stakes just aren't high. You can make mistakes and you're going to survive. The plot armor is thick in this show. You can make real rash decisions and you're not going to have to pay for these decisions like you had to in the initial telling of Game of Thrones. For me, it was revolutionary in the fact that when I saw people make mistakes, they truly paid for them. And we're back to a little bit more of a softball, formula. It's way more standard. And I think that the show does hurt a bit from that. We've seen a lot of rash decisions happen so far throughout the series, and literally none of them have had to pay consequences for these decisions. So it's so hard when you know that they can execute on this plan and people will watch, like that we've seen them put this pattern forward and now we're abandoning it for a safer version of storytelling. So to me, it leaves me wanting.
I think that's fair. I would say so far, 5 episodes in, that is not an inaccurate statement. I would posit the question: are you withholding judgment until the season's done? Because I'm sort of getting the vibe. Could be wrong. Jury's still out, but I'm getting the vibe this is more of a powder keg waiting to explode sort of thing.
Yeah.
Versus, okay, you made a mistake last episode, and here's how it cost you this episode.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I'm not going to make a judgment on the show in totality yet. This is up until this point, but like you said, they could be building towards a powder keg, and if that is what they're going for, and then as the seasons start ramping, we really start getting this risk reward behavior really being identified. I think that I would be perfectly fine in giving them a pass for these few episodes as being kind of a lead-in type of thing. But they've already shown me that they are not willing to do some of those things, like with Daemon's wife. It's like, we're going to kill her, but we're just not going to show you her until we decide to kill her. Like, that kind of thing is not something that would have happened in the original series of Game of Thrones. We would have spent some time with her before, and they probably would have made us like her. It would have been jarring to watch her die. It would have been outrageous, but this wasn't outrageous. This was downright predictable. And they've done the same. This episode in particular, they do it again with another character that they set him up as like, this person could be important, and it's like, nah, just kidding. We introduced him and killed him in the same episode. That just feels hollow. So I'm seeing a pattern that I'm a little bit nervous of, but I will give all of that a pass if they execute on this after the time jump kind of thing.
If they pay off. I will say, I think to your point, the biggest thing that is driving me crazy is that we're only 5 episodes in. Somehow Daemon has already been banished twice, and then he can still just show up whenever he wants to, apparently. Yeah, it's a thing. Nick Johnson, tell us what are you thinking about House of the Dragon season 1 so far?
I am here to complete the Triforce, and whereas Steve-O on one end, Caleb on another, I'm coming right through the middle on this middling opinion right now. I wish. See, the thing is, I wish I could go into this without having any of the Game of Thrones baggage on my back, but the last couple seasons of Game of Thrones hurt me somehow. Somehow it hurt me, and I brought this into this new series, and so far I'm enjoying it. I wish I could have had Steve-O's experience like it was a 2016 early in the hours of an election night when there's so much positive possibility in the air, but unfortunately that wasn't the
That
case.
made my stomach hurt. I'm sorry.
Yeah. But
hilariously, I'm pretty sure that season 6 in fact aired in 2016. I'm more confident than not that it did.
We were doing so well. We the world was ahead of us. But no, going into this, I think that it was hard to divorce myself from some of those feelings, that baggage I carried with me. But I found this to be well enough to draw me out of that low and at least to a middling ground. I am enjoying it. I'm interested. I'm not sure who I'm supposed to be rooting for if you root for somebody, but in the Game of Thrones we definitely had multitudes of characters that I think each one of us found passionately cheering for. But now at this moment, 5 episodes in, do I like the king the most?
Wow.
Everyone else is like making bad selfish decisions.
See, Nick, it's like you're reviewing the Rings of Power right now, where I'm 4 episodes in and I still have no clue what the heck I'm supposed to be paying attention to. It's like you're reviewing that show instead.
I think I see to your point though, but like I feel like we're all looking at the, as you say, a powder keg in the horizon, and I think that's where our focus is drawing. But who here is of these characters do you feel like is your Jon Snow, if you will, or who is your Sansa or your Arya? You know what I mean? Which is your
Yeah, I hear you, and it's one of those things where I don't think the any of the other than maybe Daemon and this is for me personally, but I don't know that many of the characters have really have done a great job winning anyone over. The thing about the Starks that makes them such a great point of view character is that they're likable, especially because they're like the moral compass in a morally corrupt, awful world. So you just inherently root for them because you want to see that prevail. Versus, I hear what you're saying, House of the Dragon. It seems like there's a lot of people with a lot of agendas, and there's things you can like about them, but you're not sure which ones. Is there one you're supposed to be rooting for, or is it just let chaos reign?
True, exactly that. I hope we'll figure it out by the end of this episode.
Oh well. Speaking of this week's episode, let's go ahead and jump into our recap discussion of We Light the Way.
I wish to propose a marriage to my daughter and heir. A royal wedding. I hope to herald in a second age of dragons.
Rhaenyra's succession will be challenged. Knives will come out.
The king will die. And if Rhaenyra succeeds him, war will follow. Prepare Aegon to rule.
According to IMDb, the official synopsis for We Light the Way reads, Daemon visits his wife in the Vale. Oh, spoiler. Holy cow. Viserys and Rhaenyra broker agreements with the Velaryons, and Alicent seeks the truth about the princess. Daniel Stoll, I'm throwing it to you first. What did you think of this week's episode?
Yeah, I said this last week, but I think, I'm going to say it again this week. I think this was my favorite episode of the season so far, actually. I really like it. Back to, I think, what Steve-O was talking about. I feel like it's the really tight story I'm really digging. And I just love how we're starting to see some of the stuff starting to pay off. And of course, we get our classic Game of Thrones wedding, which is a love-hate relationship at this point. But I actually think this episode in particular really did a really good job of tension building in those final moments, and I enjoyed that. For me, I think this is the episode that might be like, assuming the rest of the season continues on this path, I think this episode could be like the episode that sells me on the series as like a potentially, obviously we still have 5 more episodes. Things could go, different directions, but if it continues to go in this way, I think like this could be a really important episode for me to be like, say, I'm going to be a fan of this show long term.
It's the drums. Just admit it. The drums and the music. It does it. I mean, it was pretty mesmerizing. Let's be real.
That's true. It was definitely an influence on how much I like this episode.
Nick Johnson, what did you think of the spicy wedding episode?
I mean, the spice was mild, my friend. I mean, of the weddings, we had 3 weddings, and this spice is it hitting the caliente of the red wedding? No. Is it hitting the cilantro? That's not quite spicy. The mayonnaise. This is the mayonnaise wedding, because it couldn't be the red wedding, couldn't be the purple wedding. This is the mayonnaise wedding. One death? Come on.
One death by Game of Thrones standards is pretty weak, especially when it's a character that was just introduced in this episode. However, potentially sets the tone for the rest of the season in terms of a very important relationship. So Nick's saying it's the mayonnaise episode. I hate mayonnaise. You just made me dislike this episode a little bit.
The mayonnaise wedding. I'm sorry, the mayonnaise wedding. Those dances. Look at those dances. What are we flying? I don't know. The bird dances. Yeah.
They were pretty cool dances. I kind of, I'm engaged for a wedding. So if you guys accept the invitation, you better be prepared. We're going to be doing whatever that was.
I'm on board now.
Studying it today. Yeah. Steve-O, tell me, what did you think of this week's episode?
I thought the episode did a great job of placing the characters, because I feel like in Game of Thrones, there's a lot going on in the original series, a lot going on at all times. And what Caleb was saying earlier about the stakes being high from the get-go, I do agree with. But I like the fact that we're hopefully getting there. And so I think that the episode did a good job of demonstrating several things about characters. One, Daemon is getting smarter. He's adapting to the kind of person he needs to be to survive in Game of Thrones, which isn't just, I'm going to go beat people up because that'll be a show of force. Now he's like, okay, I will start to play by some rules, kind of. And so he's on an arc. Like I'm watching him grow and change. The king, I thought he seems good-hearted, but he's easily manipulable from everyone. Yes. And so in episode 1, it's a tourney and it breaks out into a brawl. This episode is a wedding and it breaks out into a brawl. And so nobody really respects this guy. And so all of these little things, I think, are building. I'm seeing characters following an arc, and I hated that Joffrey died because, again, a character. I like this character. Son of a bitch, they took him from me, immediately. But this is, nothing. Everything that the king does that is a step forward, every step forward is 2 steps backward. And so watching what should be the growth of House Targaryen kind of stumbling down the stairs like a slinky, to me, is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, no, I love how you put that, the slinky. Here's my thought, I'll come in more specifically here, but it's really cool to see that the more strength House Targaryen attempts to present to the world, like how strong united we are, the more they seem to crumble internally. It's fantastic. They're all turning against each other, or some of their, I wouldn't necessarily say political adversaries, but other parties with political interest are finding their ways to weasel their way in there to kind of take some of the power from them.
Right.
It's it's fascinating.
And I when I watched the first episode, or the first series of Game of Thrones, after I was okay, I love the Starks, and then after season 1, I went, oh, Ned's dead. Fuck it. I'm Team White Walker. And so I just rooted for the White Walker. And so I actually didn't get a payoff because I don't know what happened with the White Walkers at the end of that series. I hope they won. Go Team White Walker.
Caleb Haldane, bring us home here. What did you think of this week's episode?
I felt it was a bit strange to preempt this time jump with loose ends. Usually when you see an episode preparing for a time jump, they like to make it fairly neat, so it's a clean 10 years, right? We can age these characters, but we don't have to wonder what's about to happen. But they're positioning the king in a way that he's going to perish any minute. But then we're going to get a 10-year time jump. Or you're not going to kill the king off screen, are you? That seems horrific. And then you're setting up this air race, right? Between the child and Rhaenyra, is that her? Yeah.
Yes.
And so we're setting these up, but then now we're going to age them 10 years, but we're also trying to claim that this king can go at any second. So it's just it felt really loose way to finish this, and it's making me again nervous that we're gonna have some like off-screen storytelling that has to happen, and if not, what was the point of making this happen? And what was the point of introducing a character that we're just going to kill if we're going to jump 10 years? And like, does that mean he's going to get into a new relationship? It just it's a weird way to end this episode, knowing that we have immediate questions that are going to need to be answered, but we're not going to get them for 10 years. It's strange choice.
Yeah, I will say the one thing you mentioned there, and I guess this is sort of a spoiler for those of you who don't watch the next time on. Steve-O, I'm looking at you.
Okay,
so
no, I'm here to partake and to learn. So,
well, all I'll say is, and this is actually a great argument for why the next time ons might be a bad idea, is they do confirm that after the 10-year jump that Viserys is still living, despite the fact that it appears at the end of this episode he very well could be dead. Yeah. I kind of was enjoying the slow burn with him, but I do think knowing that there's a 10-year jump and he survives, I'm interested to see where it goes. Can't judge it yet, but it does feel like really weird. I'm like, well, why did you spend all this time setting it up? Because 10 years is a long time. I mean, that has to be a real slow decay. Where in this episode, he looked like he was at death's door.
Yeah, the travel across the sea nearly killed him, and yet 10 years later, still kicking it. It's like, okay.
And again, that's not necessarily a criticism of this episode specifically, but in terms of we've talked, me and Daniel Stoll and others have talked about kind of the pros and the cons of time jumps. And one of the pros is you can sort of justify some shortcuts. And what I mean is you don't have to worry about unnecessary subplots. You can just focus on the most important moments in these characters' relationships that we assume are going to lead to some sort of climactic moments later in the season and eventually the series. Versus, this guy looks like he's about to die 10 years later. He's still alive. Just feels kind of weird. Again, not necessarily in the context of this episode, though. Caleb?
Yeah, and I'm not against the time jumps. I think that this can be done, and this can be done in a way where we don't even have to answer these questions right out of the gate. We can do it in flashbacks episodes later, right? It's just a strange choice is all I'm saying, just to basically ask immediate questions and then go, okay, time jump. But it can be handled. And I think that's it's not an impossibility just because it's a strange choice. It very well could be like, we won't even answer these questions in our first episode back. We'll establish the 10-year timeline. We'll present new questions. And then as those episodes go on, we'll use flashbacks to answer the questions that we've just posed immediately. That would be perfectly fine. And it wouldn't even feel all that jarring. But like I said, it's a strange choice.
Flashbacks would be a big deal for Game of Thrones, any Game of Thrones program, though, because they typically have never used those. They have done dream sequences. It's not that it can't be done, obviously, but it would not fit the style, quote unquote, that was established with the original series.
But I feel like they've broken a bit from style so far.
That's true. I agree with that. Steve-O?
Did they not use a flashback sequence to explain Hodor's name?
That's clever. There's a reason they hired a lost director to direct to that episode, Jack Bender, The Door. It's because it was not a flashback per se.
Okay.
It was Bran was using his magical powers in order to relive memories in the present day,
right,
and witness things from the past. Again, if you've watched the television show Lost, you'll understand why it's like, oh, it's not a flashback, but it's definitely accomplishing the same things flashbacks tend to do.
Right. Okay. My bad, Thronesians. My bad.
It is a little, I hear you though, because they had to do that at the tail end of the series where they did like dream sequences and weird things, kind of like that was really, honestly, probably the most valuable function Bran served in the second half of the series was like, all right, we have some backstory we need to explain somehow, or we can't figure out how to kill Baelish. Let's just get him killed by the omniscient guy, but never explain what his powers are. Anyway, bitter. We're not going to talk about it.
Would it be considered a flashback if Daemon comes in and goes, hey, so what happened to the king? And someone's like, boy, let me tell you that story. And it's technically a story being told in real time, just shown to,
No, that's a flashback. That's a flashback because, okay. Oh, man, we're going down a rabbit hole here.
I'm tangents and rabbit holes. That's what happens when you bring me on your show.
I see what you're doing, Steve-O, and it's not going to work. It's not going to work on the Cast Beyond the Wall. It might work on Red 6, but it's not working here today. No.
It does, yeah, very much.
Yes.
Okay, so real quick, I like this episode quite a bit. I definitely would say, yeah, Nick, to your point, it is the least bloody of the wedding episodes. Mm-hmm. I thought they did an incredible job building the tension, though, to Daniel Stoll's point, which is the music. And everyone's like, oh, this is a Westerosi wedding. We know something bad is going to happen. It's just, what is it? When's the shoe going to drop? And I love how they executed that entire sequence where all these different characters are like eyeing each other. Like, ooh, hot take. Oh, gossip. Look over here, look over there. Music's rising. Your blood starts pumping faster, and you're like, okay, what's gonna happen? That said, the thing that happens, while still of consequence and definitely scandalous and compelling, I would argue, compared to the Red Wedding or the Purple Wedding, it didn't seem like that big of a deal in the long run, especially seeing as a certain character, which we'll get to, Sir Criston, kind of appears to get off the hook at the end of the episode, to Caleb Haldane's point about the plot armor, which is he did this really stupid thing that should totally get him like not only, get his titles removed, but like totally killed instantly and publicly humiliated. But I guess Westeros and King's Landing, 200 plus years ago, it's a lot kinder than the Game of Thrones timeline. That said, though, I really love what we're seeing with Alicent. I feel like she's making some pretty impressive development. She's definitely the one that I found the least interesting at the beginning, but I am becoming more and more compelled by with each episode. And not to reiterate too much what Steve-O said, Daemon is playing the Game of Thrones. I laid it on pretty heavy in our last recap episode about how everything that happened was a very strategic political decision in which he is trying to play the long game. This episode only forwards that theory that he is actually being very calculated in what he's doing and when. And it seems like he comes out on top this episode. He's able to murder his wife and get all her wealth and lands.
Before we leave the wedding, I have to ask you a question. What did you think about the Alicent walking down the stairs into the room, and it's like pan to shot of two people that don't matter, and let's explain the color real quick? Like, that's one of the weakest things I've seen in Game of Thrones, and it was so blatant here.
So here's what that feels like. And if you watch I watched the making of, in which they specifically addressed this, they were very proud of the sequence in which she shows up in the green dress and walks in the line. But they're like, and even though we had to kind of explain it a little bit, we hope that it's subtle enough. And I kind of laughed a little bit because what it told me was that probably the writing directing team probably thought that they did not include that scene, and then the producers are watching it and they're like, "You think audiences are going to get it? No. Can you reshoot and add that line in to make sure it's clear?" It did. I loved it up until yes. Now the one thing I will say is they aren't characters who matter yet, and I will say another development in this episode. I'm really curious to see where it goes. Is the Strong family stepping up their game? So the new Hand of the King, Lionel Strong, apparently has two kids, one of them being Larys Strong, who clearly is doing some conniving mustache twirling when he's talking to Alicent. So again, characters that did not matter up until this point, but I feel like they are also characters based on what happens in this episode, that we will probably see more of in the future episodes. So fair criticism, though. Very on the nose and kind of lazy. Yeah. Yes. Assuming that the audience is not going to get it.
Especially since they could have just handled it when she goes and talks to the other Hightower, right? Like, you handle it there and say like, thank you for wearing the green, or like you make it more part of the thing we're witnessing rather than that jarring cutaway. Hey, do you know why she's wearing green? It's like, what? Who are you talking to, man?
I actually kind of thought it was sort of an awards show. I know the Emmys were just last week, but it's like, I just was waiting for two people to scoot in with their microphones and be like, oh my God, can you see Alicent Hightower wearing the colors of her house, not the Targaryens? Scandalous. That's what I was thinking anyway. All right, well let's get into the actual scene by scene breakdown here of the episode, starting with Daemon returns to the Vale. At least, here's another thing I'll say. At least this show can justify the teleporting that these characters do. A, time jumps, and B, freaking Daemon's got a dragon. He can be anywhere within like a day. It's incredible. So you don't have to worry about, the weird Jon Snow teleporting thing. So anyway, we see Daemon returns to meet his wife, Rhea Royce, and just decides to kill her. I guess he just thought this was the time. And it was a cool. I love I don't know about you guys. I love the build up with the horse riding, and you're like, ooh, something clearly is afoot.
So I had
character we haven't met. Go ahead, Steve.
I should have used the hand raise function. I was thinking when I was watching the scene I've never read the book or anything. Coming in cold, I didn't get the sense, and perhaps everybody's going to disagree with me. And this is what I think about Daemon, is I think Daemon is learning the Game of Thrones, but I don't think he's super calculating yet, because I think he's very reactive in the moment. So I think he's taking advantage of opportunities that he has. So I didn't get the sense that he went back there for the purpose of killing her and did it. I got the sense that he showed up. There was an accident because he was holding out his hand. He didn't come at her threateningly. He just put out his hand. The horse got spooked. She fell and he went, oh, this is my opportunity. Hunting accident. So I took it as just like, ooh, this is where, things are coming up Millhouse for Daemon.
I honestly didn't look at it that way whatsoever. Anyone else here have that same thought? I'm curious.
Yeah. So I agree that the level of Daemon is super reactionary, right? Like he gets the message at the stepstones and he's just like, and then immediately reacts to this crazy plan. But that scene, was he accidentally spooked the horse and it jumped? I felt like he was made that happen once he got there, which is a weird thing to have been able to make happen, I admit. But at the same time, it looked like, I don't know, could you shove a horse? It kind of looked like it.
The way they cut that scene is she grabs bow, he lunges forward. So to me, that's showing that he now has, malcontent, right? Like this is not something that he is just like, hey, how's your horse doing? No, this is like, oh, you're going to reach for your bow? Like, I'm coming for you. So whether or not he meant to spook the horse, he definitely meant to produce harm. And there was going to, because he's so reactionary, he didn't even know yet how he was going to do that harm. That's kind of how I saw it. But yeah, then he kind of chickens out, walks away. And again, she kind of spurns him and reacts again. Like this, he just.
I knew you couldn't finish. Low blow.
Well, that's part of the reason why I don't think he necessarily showed up to kill her, because I think he was going to
they wouldn't have cut that shot of her reaching for the bow then. That changes
she read
the story.
From him that she was in danger. She went for a weapon. He came forward. And then he was, I think you're right. Yeah, I think it was like, okay, you're basically dead. I'm out. And then she goaded him into brutality. So, yeah.
Oh, I felt like he was going to go for that rock the whole time. I thought that's where he was walking, and she piped in because what's his play if he's just going to leave her paralyzed? Like if someone comes along, they're going to be like, "Oh, you fell in front of your husband and he walked off, leave you for death." Like we're going to war. He had to have been intending to kill her that whole time, right?
The way I saw it is that she was. He thought she's going to die here. Now it's a bad play. It's a terrible play, but it did I'm not as convinced that he's calculating enough to make the good play, right? So this is a flaw. Her goading him saved his bacon because I don't think she dies in an hour. Unless she's got massive internal injuries that we don't see, she's going to be there a while and someone's going to find her.
Okay, but guys, you're ignoring the fact that when he arrives, he's standing in her way between where she's riding from and her home, and he's wearing a creepy hood in which he clearly does not want to be identified. And I don't know if he fully intended to smash her head with the rock. I feel like that might have been twisting the knife, but I'm pretty sure he was gonna kill her. Okay, I mean that's just my take. Why else would he be there?
Did you see the gorgeous weather they were having? But so he's out for a walk,
And the veil,
and he's a brisk breeze comes in. You got to have your cloak on you. Just saying.
Like you say, he's like trying to disguise himself because he's in a cloak, but he clearly transported there on a dragon. Like that's the least low key way to travel in the entire Westerosi method.
Listen, Caleb, that happened off screen. Doesn't count. Daniel Stoll, you're being quiet here. What were your thoughts?
I'll go ahead and jump in here. First, I just want to say I think that Daemon is probably the most layered character we have on the show, and so he's like the one that has the most the onion, I guess. And I'm really just the more that I see of him, the more I'm like, man, I really sometimes can't get a full read on this guy, like in a good way. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a really strong character kind of way. I have some, I guess, as I'm listening to you guys talk, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I see that. Oh yeah, I see that point too. I felt like he was there to kill her from the beginning, but I don't think, I do think the rock thing is interesting. Because I think that's probably what, when I was thinking we picked up the rock, I was like, oh, you're going to make this obvious. It wasn't a hunting accident. Like if you come up in your face is like smashed, I don't know. It's like, it didn't seem like the horse could do the damage that he could do with a rock. And so and then obviously later we get that, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but, we get that scene where that guy,
the other Royce guy.
Where the guy asserts that it was Daemon that killed him. And I felt like the rock was his reactionary mistake in that moment now, but I also see the point of probably maybe she would have lived otherwise, so I don't know, but I felt like that was the way that he decided to kill her may have been a mistake because it'd make it too obvious was sort of how I read the scene. But I also do agree with you, Caleb Masters, that he is pretty I think he's more calculated than people give him credit for. Because he is also reactionary. But beneath all that actionary, there is a plan that he has, I think. It's just trying to rein it in a little bit. Sometimes he has a difficulty with. And I think the messenger call out by Nick is a good point. Just that immediate reaction of anger and frustration. It definitely is in there. It's just, can he hold it back enough to achieve the sort of calculations that he has. I also have, obviously we've picked up on this thing, she says, I knew you couldn't finish, and we've seen the multiple sex scenes where he is unable to finish, and in this scene he can't finish. This is just my own sort of theory. I wonder if this is some sort of foreshadowing for the way that this ends for him, is that he maybe somehow gets close, but then at the end at the finish line he doesn't finish and fails to get the throne or whatever. That's just my own personal I wonder what this is supposed to communicate about his character, because we're clearly getting a line of he doesn't finish the job, sexual or violence wise. But someone goats it. I don't know. That's just an interesting thought I had. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's my takeaway from this scene.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's a through line, and it's my understanding is again, having not read this portion of Fire and Blood. My understanding is this is a show invention, his inability to finish his sex, basically. And I'm curious about where they're going with that. I don't know. It's not clear to me yet, but it's definitely a trait about him that seems interesting, Daniel. So yeah, thematically, I think there's something there. Yeah, I don't know, guys. We'll talk a little bit more about Daemon at the end, because he also pulls some other wild card things. Here's what I would say. I think he can be both calculated and reactionary at the same time. As in, last week, I think pretty much everything he did was very intentional with the brothel, luring his niece into the brothel so that people found out about it. I think, but at the same time, I think he's reactionary there because he does not anticipate for her to be as into it as him, and it freaks him out because he's no longer in control in the way he thought he was. Hence, he leaves abruptly, right? And I think we see a similar, I think it's very possible that he's doing a similar thing here. He's here to kill his wife in this sort of frame as a hunting accident. She says something that upsets him, in which he brutalizes the body, in which it's clear that it's not an accident. I don't know. That's my take. We'll have to stay tuned to find out. But another major plot line here, or I should say series of scenes, is what I'm calling a Hightower reunion. So first, we see that Otto and Alicent meet to discuss his fate as the former hand, in which he basically is like, "Yo, you got to make Aegon the next king. You know, the future of our family rests on it, and not only the future of our family, but if there's a woman who is crowned, you know, the queen of Westeros, there will be a civil war, and a lot of people are going to die." Alicent initially insists that her father's motivation was the drive, but again, he is insisting it's for the realm. Classic Game of Thrones, where people are quote unquote for the realm as long as it also simultaneously benefits them as well, naturally. And a follow-up scene, I want to talk about these two scenes kind of in conjunction together. And a follow-up scene when Alicent is reflecting upon her father's words in front of the weirwood tree. Larys Strong, who is the son of Lionel Strong, who is the new hand of the king, Larys Strong decides to put a little whisper in her ear about Rhaenyra's potential pregnancy, saying, "Oh yeah, I hope Rhaenyra is okay. Oh, you didn't know she had some sort of tea delivered to the room? I don't know what that's about, but, you know, I just was worried. Do you know what's going on?" So I want to just throw this out here, because one thing that really surprised me was how now I feel like the Strong family actually has somewhat of an angle, whereas before I did not think they had one. At least Larys Strong does. Lionel Strong still seems to be playing the middle, but I'm curious. Caleb Haldane, I'm going to start with you. What do you think the angle here is for the Larys Strong to sort of drive this wedge between Alicent and Rhaenyra?
Well, I think it definitely bodes well for his family, right? If the royals don't provide a unified front, if the more chaos that is sown, the more the hand is important and his family is important. So I think that is the surface level, right? Now, I think that this is like a classic hook and knob situation, which is what I hear when they talk about, like, we'll leave something there and then we'll dial it up later, right? And Lost was kind of the program that I think coined this term, and it was just like, we'll just put knobs everywhere and we'll turn some of them and we won't turn others. And this one I think is going to get picked up. But I do think it's kind of folly to predict what it is, because they can take it in n number of directions, but they definitely can use this later as like, this is this family's true goal. But to expose it now, I think is just not even interesting. Like, I think we're going to want more developments to happen before we turn this knob. But I also want to talk about Alicent and the prior hand. This is exactly kind of what I was talking about, old Game of Thrones versus new Game of Thrones. Like, the king finds out you've been manipulating him and you just get exiled. Like, you don't just get murdered. Is a strange new style that this one's taking on. And whether or not that they like are trying like a new style or what this is, it is definitely a different Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Steve-O?
I'll answer your question, but also react to Caleb's. There is that the idea behind King Viserys. That's his. I apologize if I get a name wrong. There are a lot of names in Game of Thrones, and I. Yeah,
dude, it's taken me like 5 episodes, and there's some of these side characters I totally trip up. Don't worry.
But the king is not a brutal guy. He doesn't kill his brother when his brother shoves him around. I'm just going to banish you. He's half measures Veneris, like, all the time. And, you know, morally is probably the right thing to do. Like, that's a better thing to be. But to me, the point behind the king is that he's so hesitant to show force in any form ever. And that's a character trait of his. So I do like the fact that they set up with, the strong Larys, that he's in a position where he can information gather. So they showed him at the King's Hunt, or at the hunt, where he was like, yeah, I can't go hunting. Do you guys mind if I sit in here with you? And he's just absorbing information. All of the things that are being said by the maidens and the queen and everything, like he's absorbing all of that. And so he's in a unique position to just be like an information broker. And so to me, I just see the Strongs kind of as pot stirrers and not for any specific goal quite yet. I do agree with Caleb that it's probably going to be a little while. I'd be shocked if the show went, next episode went, and this is why they did it, because it seems like such a good piece of rope to put down, to tug upon. And seeing how information moves in this world is also very interesting, because you know that Daemon knew already that there were going to be spies at the brothel, because he was already called out at like the end of episode 1 or in episode 2. So he knew, I agree with you, he knew what he was doing by taking Rhaenyra there. But yeah, I think the Strongs are just pot stirring right now. And I think that the thing that I like about this show is that what these scenes do is it's portraying the characters well and consistently.
Yeah, I think a thing that I would say has been missing for me this season, a little different than what Caleb's saying, related, but a little different. And I know we're only 5 episodes in, so it takes some time to really build up to the full grand scale scheming. But it seems like most of the scheming that's happened so far has been sort of small scale. It's sort of like the thing I find compelling about what we're getting from Laenor Strong here is it's very much a Varys or Littlefinger type. I'm just going to drop this information here. You don't know what their motives are, really. You don't know how they're going to use it or what else they know, but it's intriguing. And those are the characters I'm personally most compelled by, is the shadow players, the people who are playing the quiet, slow information brokering. I think that's a great way to put it, Steve-O. That sort of game. So it was really refreshing to me to see, again, hopefully they go somewhere with it. You know, I don't think they're going to introduce, a Laenor Strong doing something like that if they're not going to take it somewhere. I hope we get more of that, though, because that's definitely more of the thing that I find really compelling. Nick, any thoughts on either the conversation between Alicent and her father Otto, or the Laenor Strong conversation?
Absolutely. Boy, this episode's been an interesting one for Alicent. At one moment I'm going, geez, she sure is seeming rather naive as she's taking this information from Laenor Strong and just kind of running with it without desire to double check or, which is a very vulnerable way to be in the Game of Thrones world. Later on, we won't get into it now, but all along the Hightower. So it really is this change for this character. I hate the idea that anyone's in Game of Thrones or doing the court intrigue is laying things out there without intent behind them, to see what happens. And not to say that that's not what's going on, but I try to see and devour and figure out what the play could be here. And so what this is doing, what Laenor Strong is doing, is setting Alicent and Rhaenyra against each other. Okay, so then later on, this is all, again, for the throne's sake, is the context I'm looking at it in. So are the Strongs positioning themselves through the hand with what would be good advice? I can't see anything that the hand Strong had suggested that I would have thought was manipulative in a negative way. He doesn't put forth his own son as a possible marriage match or anything like that. So interesting to see. There's this weird nobility going on with Elder Strong, but then Laenor Strong, there's this weird, you can't see what the play would be if it's not, kind of insidious. So it's interesting in that way. I don't know where it's going to lead. I think, unfortunately, it's too soon to find out. I'm just really hoping that it leads somewhere, or else this might be a bit of a black mark against it.
Daniel, Stoll, any thoughts you want to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys are covering it pretty well. I think that, there is clear, a intention to create a rift between, that's a rift that has already started to tear between Alicent and Rhaenyra. And I'm wondering if I'm getting also the sense from Laris, like, that maybe he's trying to, sort of pull, like, get on Alicent's side a little bit, where it's like, if, from the character's perspective, I know we already talked about the potential spoiling of like the next time on or whatever. But from the character's perspective, Viserys looks like he could die any day, right? So you don't need to do anything to Viserys. You just need to be prepared for his death. And so by being, kind of in Alicent's corner a little bit, like we gave you this information, I let you know that she has been lying to you, which seems to be a very important thing to Alicent. Maybe he sort of positioned himself to be just on her corner, just subtly a little bit. You guys have hinted about this on the difference between like old Game of Thrones and new Game of Thrones. I feel like the game is being played a lot more subtly than maybe we're kind of used to. Like it's very slow, subtle moves, which I think is interesting. And I'm on board with it so far. But I feel like others have said, it's hard to know exactly what the grand scheme is here. But I'm interested to see, where it leads.
Well, Alicent's certainly a character to watch. I think I'm going to mention her again before we wrap up the episode. Obviously, she had another stunning scene in the episode that we'll talk about later. But I want to move on to talk a little bit about Viserys and Rhaenyra. They sail to high tide to propose the marriage. And, I just want to stop on this podcast and say, we have not fully appreciated on the cast beyond the wall how the Velaryon house, their sigil is a seahorse. Come on. That's pretty cool, right? Seahorse sigil?
Absolutely.
Come on.
Absolutely.
So Corlys, firstly, I think is sort of a, soft flip of the bird, is not present to greet the king when he arrives. I think it sort of signifies that there's still sort of a bit of a grudge there, as we have seen where Viserys had turned down the previous marriage proposal. And then eventually, yes, Viserys meets with Corlys and the marriage proposed. But my favorite part is when Corlys says, great proposal. I need a few clarifications. I don't know about you guys, but when you're in the work environment and people start asking for clarifications, you're like, damn it, I question your motives slightly, at least a little bit. Not actually, but you're like, clarifications, dang. Okay, we got to get this on paper. But I thought it was interesting how Corlys was like, yes, I'm okay with it as long as we can agree to some very specific terms related to the line of succession if the marriage were to occur, which again, Corlys is being smart. He's already got burned at least once. So that inherent trust is just not there. So he's got to get it I don't know about in writing, but he's got to get the specifics worked out. So the agreement they come to is that Viserys and Corlys agree to allow the children of Rhaenyra to carry the Velaryon name so long as once they are crowned the ruler, king or queen, they will be named Targaryen, as sort of a bit of a compromise. So I'm going to turn to you first, Daniel Stoll. Do you think Corlys Velaryon and Rhaenys Targaryen can be trusted to support Rhaenyra's claim here? Because they also have a scene where they kind of talk it out about whether it's a good move.
This could be me being naive, but I kind of bought that they were in, especially Corlys, actually. I actually thought Rhaenys was more, of the one, even though she's the Targaryen, like more of the one that was like, I don't know. I guess her not being voted queen really burned her, because she really seems to not be like, no matter what, like a woman can't do it. And it's weird because it seems like that was something that she could have been potentially really, good at. So I don't know. I actually, and again, this could be just me being like, trying to find the positive in people, but I felt like they were on board and willing to do the name change and everything. I bought it.
Daniel, this is what I love about you. You're just so optimistic and just believe the words of the royals.
I just want to believe in everybody, man. I just want everyone can do it, man. I believe in
just
you.
Make an agreement and agree to it. It's not that hard. Be a good ethical person. Yeah. Steve-O, what did you think about this? Do you think Corlys Velaryon and Rhaenys Targaryen, do you think they can be trusted to support the Rhaenyra's claim?
I agree with Daniel, and I was thinking about the moral compass of the show, and I think that we get it a little bit here with them, because this whole time I've gotten what seems to be nothing but honesty from the Velaryon house. And not only that, but he doesn't want to go to war, but he wants to project strength from the kingdom. He wants to be a good leader. He'll listen to other people's, options and opinions. He does get upset, but he acknowledges the sexism of the kingdom, and moreover wants to crusade against it. And it should have been you, is what he says to his wife. It should have been you. It wasn't. And now we can, correct this injustice and we can change the realm. And I think that, and I can't remember her name. Is it the Targaryen?
Rhaenyra?
The king's cousin. Rhaenyra.
Oh, wait, the cousin. So the cousin would be Rhaenys Targaryen.
Rhaenys, thank you. She cares about the fact that women are treated in such a way in this place, but she just wants to protect her family. And so her reasons for saying just maybe Aegon should just be the ruler is not because she definitely was destroyed, I think, by the choice, but I don't think it's a fuck him kind of thing. Her motivation is we're going to put our kid in danger. If he becomes, king consort, he's in danger. That's what she's worried about. So I agree with Daniel. It looks like there's a light in the darkness here. There's some people that want good things to happen and that want, but also care for their family.
Man, you guys are so moving with this belief. And here's the thing. You might actually be right. I'll give you that. And I would say there's a reason they don't make it to the Game of Thrones era. Unfortunately, if they are good, honest people, clearly they don't make it. So with that said, Caleb Haldane, what do you think?
Yeah. Now, normally being the voice of dissent coming in here, but I actually am going to double down on this one and say that this is low-key one of the best scenes in this episode. The "it should have been you" scene, I actually think contradicts a little bit of what you guys are saying. Is she's devastated. I think maybe at one point in time she was devastated, but this, I think, shows she's truly over it. The fact that she is looking at this objectively and is I had my time, I had my shot, it didn't go, but I'm over it. There's no reason to make these claims to him unless she truly feels that way. There's no one else in this room. There's no one else to lie to. I think this is a snapshot truly of her wanting the best for her family. And I really enjoyed this scene in particular. And I think it's one of the best of the episode.
All right, man. Nick, what do you think, man?
Wrong. Wrong. I can't believe it. I can't believe you all have been fishing. I'm literally, there's a fishing pole out here and I'm pulling in 3 so far, Caleb Masters. I hope you don't agree with this. Of course, yes. Corlys is just, sure, yes, we will do that. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. It's Game of Thrones. Are you kidding me? Once their son is king, he's just going to go, I'm a Velaryon. And we're done. That's all it takes. That's all it takes.
It's true.
Are you crazy? Yeah, sure. He literally showed up on their doorstep. They disrespected him at the door. He walks in and then begs, basically, as they say in there, begs for that marriage proposal. And Corlys has already gone to Daemon to betray Viserys. Craziness. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I think here's the thing you hit on there that casts the most doubt for me is Corlys and Daemon have a very strong relationship based on how they partnered together to win back the Stepstones, right? And even if I think as an idealist, Corlys believes in what he's saying, I think pragmatically there is a part of them that has loyalties to Daemon, which I think is going to, and maybe they don't even know it yet, but it is going to put them at odds with Viserys down the road. There's too many conflict of interest here, and it's not going to play out as this is the agreement, this is how it's going to go. And it could go a lot of different ways. Again, it's another one of those knobs, Caleb Haldane that you mentioned here, where it's ooh, this is a thing that's going to, I'm more confident than I was going to come back. I don't know which direction it's going to go, but there's a multitudes of ways they could use this sort of subplot. On its face, yeah, good moral people. I think they believe the things they're saying. But I also think pragmatically, because this is Game of Thrones, they have they have been burned previously by Viserys, and also they have other relationships and other partnerships that fall outside of the crown who have competing interests. Daniel Stoll, bring us home here.
You guys bring up some good points. And of course, I even went into it saying I could, this totally could be wrong about this, but I want to believe. But I think this is what's interesting with a prequel, right? Like and this is gonna be difficult because we at least know from just the Game of Thrones, no book knowledge or whatever, that Mad King Aerys was under the name Targaryen. I think prequels can be really interesting, even though we know where things end up. You can still find a lot of tension in like these sort of things. And Caleb and I have talked on the podcast before. Like I feel like for anyone that's watched Better Call Saul, that's a show that does a prequel really well in being able to, even though you know the outcomes, you still feel all of the tension within the characters. I am still intrigued in this story because even though I know that there are people later that are under the name Targaryen, I wonder why. Like, is it because they get the throne and follow through, or is it because there's some betrayal or whatever? So I think, despite the fact that we have some information, there's still a lot of interesting things from this, and I feel like that's a strength because it's as a prequel. So
Yeah, they're able to have these big open questions that we know at the end of the day. Obviously it's not a Velaryon on the throne, but at the same time, you're like, something's going to go down with these guys. What's it going to be? What's it going to look like? And what are the long-term impacts going to be? I think that's a good point, Daniel. And with that,
but the Velaryons do when they do get something. Like we know that they get the movie Velaryon.
Oh wow! I don't hate that movie.
Tomato.
I love how bonkers Velaryon the movie is. Unfortunately, it does not feature the Velaryon house from House of the Dragon, or does it?
You're the guy that watched it. You tell me.
I am one of the 10. There are tens of us, Steve-O, that watched that movie, and even ones of us that liked it. All right, so let's move on here because we also have we get a little more insight here into some of the complications of the Velaryon household, which is Laenor is gay, or at least not heterosexual. I should be very careful to make sure it's clear. He's at least into men, potentially also women, but they seem to imply he's only into men. In this case, his lover is Joffrey Lonmouth, a.k.a. his nickname, I guess, is the Knight of Kisses. And, the Knight of... I know, right? What a name! What a name!
That's the best name. That's the best name.
That's how he introduced himself. It wasn't like a name other people gave him. He's like, yo, my name's Joffrey Lonmouth. I'm also known as the Knight of Kisses. This is wild.
When I do that, HR sends me an email immediately.
Caleb, Haldane, have you tried to introduce yourself that way in a meeting?
Well, maybe a couple times.
So it just kind of adds a little more layer of complexity, which we're going to get to here in a little bit, but just want to lay that out. They do plant it in a scene earlier where, it's a character they just introduced in this episode, but you know what? Kudos to those two performers. Because they do really sell that relationship in a very short period of time, and they kind of had to for the end of the episode to pay off in a meaningful way. But I want to talk about the boat ride back for Rhaenyra to King's Landing here, because we have Sir Criston, who shows up, no armor, wearing that sexy button down, or whatever, not button down. It's the shirt you have to tie the knots or whatever. He shows up, might as well have a rose in his mouth, saying, "But Rhaenyra, I know you're not happy with this. I know you don't like him. What if we just ran away together? What if we just ran away together and we were free?" To which case, Rhaenyra says, "Man, it's really tempting, but what if I was the Queen of Westeros instead?"
But what if I just get it all? Like, what if I just get all of it? Like, why do I have to settle on a little bit when I can just have all?
You want me to be one of the poors over in Essos? Are you kidding me? Come on. Caleb Haldane, what did you think? I mean, why do you think that Rhaenyra decides to maintain her course despite... Because the thing is, the show has done a really good job outlining how the patriarchy is actively fighting against women being in positions of power. So why do you think she decides to maintain her course despite knowing that she's going to have to fight extra hard to win that power?
Because I do think she thinks she can have it all. Like, at this point, I think this is a bit of her uncle rubbing off on her, where there is this concept or a preconceived notion that, it's all for you to take. You just have to take it. You're in that position. Like, there are certain things that have to go your way. You have to be born a certain way. but those things are there, so you can take it all. And I think she has that idea here, and she mulls it over for like a second and realizes, no, like I just want you as my side piece. Like I don't want attachment here. I want it all.
I know I made you. I gave you no option but to break your oath, which literally destroyed your soul and shattered it into a million pieces. But I'm going to disregard your request. Denied.
Yeah.
Steve-O, what were your thoughts on this the scene here?
I really liked this scene because I was really liking Rhaenyra up until this point. Like I was very much rooting for, no, you can do it. Come on, you can get the throne. No, you deserve it. Come on. Like you seem to be listening to things and being able to give suggestions. Like, why don't we just go take the dragons out and let the dragons do some shit? Like, oh, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. And so I was rooting for her, and this made her complex to me. It wasn't, and this is what I love about Game of Thrones is there really aren't, like, there isn't really anybody who's like pure, who's really a good person ever. And so her saying like, she really did cast his feelings aside. She didn't acknowledge them in any way, shape, or form. But she also I didn't get the sense that she was just like, you're just going to be my, like, I feel like she was thinking that he would be her like ongoing relationship, just the non-public one, was sort of the feeling that I got, except for the fact that he was like, we could be together. She didn't sell it as, we can still be together. We just have to do it this way because I want to do this as well. She really did go, yeah, I mean, I'm not super thrilled about that idea. So I'm going to do I think I am, her ambitions are growing and becoming overpowering, or I don't know if I want to say overpowering, but they're definitely becoming like making her more power hungry.
She's seduced by her own ambitions at this point.
Yeah. And so I liked it because it wasn't a heel turn to me. It just went, now you have to decide which is, what's really important to you, and what's really important to her is the throne. And so now we have someone she's her father's daughter, so she's got some of her dad's some of that pragmatism and kindness there, but is Daemon's influence gonna overwrite all of that? Is her own growth going to take her in a different direction? And so I didn't, at the beginning of the conversation, I didn't really feel like she was casting him aside, just to like, no, you could have both been in that relationship. But now I'm thinking about it, and the way it was presented, the way she reacted to him, she did kind of like go, well, I guess go to hell, because I'm going that way.
I mean, that is certainly a way to put it. I don't think it's inaccurate though. I mean, she pretty much blows him off. Nick Johnson, what was your take on the scene?
Oh man, this scene's such a bummer. I tell you, it just right. I've literally been that dude. I'm like 17. I go to a party. A girl kisses me on the cheek, and I just refuse to read the room. And I'm just like, well, we should run off and get married and like have like 10 kids because we're like, it's like I don't even know you, guy. I just was having a fun time at a party. So I'm bummed out by this scene. I'm that guy. Like literally, he just can't read the room. She's just not that into you, bro. And it's unfortunate, but like you broke your vow, you made that choice. And it wasn't like she really like forced him. She was just like, I really want to kiss you. He was like, okay.
I mean,
my
she had to
vow.
persuade him a little bit.
Persuade him. I mean, honestly. That's
it took
crazy.
him 30 minutes to disrobe. He had plenty of rethink time.
Yeah. She was still robed. It's like, yeah, he was already. Bracers. It's true.
It's a fair point. And yeah, I mean, Nick, I think you're spot on here. I mean, he, I think, who said, wait, was it you, Steve-O, who said there's no good people in Game of Thrones?
I mean, there are exceptions, but generally, there's nobody who's completely good. Everybody's
Sir Criston Cole, I feel like, is probably one of the so far. I mean, I'm sure he's going to do some terrible things in the next episode. I'm certain of it. But up until this point, I'm like,
or maybe just the way that this one ends.
In this one.
We don't have to wait.
Episode.
listen, people lash out. Okay, they're just human. Even good people lash out sometimes when they're pushed to their limits.
No.
All right.
No.
Listen. All I'm saying is, up until this scene, I'm like, Criston Cole, he's a man of honor. He's trying to stick to his vows. He feels awful, like it is destroying him on the inside that he broke his vow to sleep with Rhaenyra. You know, in fact, when Alicent confronts him about it, which we'll get to here in a second, but like, he literally is like, go ahead and kill me. Just make it fast, please. That's my only request. Like that is how badly he thinks he screwed up. And I think it just tells you a lot about that character. Now, you know, end of the episode notwithstanding, I would argue up until halfway through the episode, he's one of the more morally pure people who we've ever seen on screen in a Game of Thrones program. Daniel Stoll, you're nodding your head. What were your thoughts here?
Yeah, I think to me, this scene was more than a bummer. I was so sad. Like he literally says, like, you can see him like wearing the guilt, like on, like it's his soul. Like he literally says, like, I have nothing left. I have broken my vows. There is nothing. My only hope at having some type of a life is if we run away together. And it's like he's trying to save this thing that really isn't even like you said, read the room. Like it's not even a thing, but he's like, that's the only way I can justify everything that's happened. Otherwise, I have nothing. I deserve nothing. I mean, he is like, gosh, it was just so sad to see him in that state. And it's just like his like desperation to like save his honor in some way, I think, in his mind. And so again, maybe this is me being naive again, but I also felt like, yes, Rhaenyra definitely like didn't even consider his feelings, right? But I also felt like there was I feel like Rhaenyra has started to develop a little bit. Yes, I think that she wants like the throne and stuff, but I also don't get the sense that she's like Otto, where like she's like conniving to trying to kill people. Like she still wants to be a good leader, and I do think that she part of her decision. I mean, is that she feels some responsibility. I mean, like we've had her scenes with her father where they talk about like this family secret that nobody knows about, how they have to protect the family and the Targaryens have to be on the throne when this great evil comes. Or Viserys has had these dreams about how important things are. And so I think we've seen her have multiple scenes like that with her father. And so I think in addition to, yes, just being queen and being the first queen, why wouldn't you want that, right? But I also think there's this other layer to her where she does want to be a good queen and a good leader. And again, maybe that's just me like being my, I believe in everybody. Everybody can be a good person themselves. But I think that's part of that is there too.
Yeah, see, Daniel, you kind of position this as her having a duty and wanting to be a good ruler. I would use the word entitled would probably be a different way to put it. You say responsibility, I say entitlement, because as we noted in our last discussion of episode 4, she actually is wildly out of touch with what the citizens of Westeros need, want, or how they live. So I don't know how she can expect to be a good queen if she doesn't understand the basic principles of ruling and how to make good with the people you're ruling over. So I think it's more of this, yes, I think her father has passed down this idea of almost like a manifest destiny sort of thing. There has to be a Targaryen on the throne when things go south. We have to be here. We're the only ones who can save Westeros from ourselves and the great evil from the north. And she feels like she has to have the throne because of that. But I would flip it and say there's a lot more entitlement driving her. This is mine. They named me heir. This is mine. I'm going to take it. No one's going to take it from me. Steve-O?
I think that the part of the reason why she is disconnected, though, is by her station, which she, at multiple instances, kind of despises. So I don't think that she's so disconnected from the rest of Westeros because she doesn't care about them. In fact, she seems to kind of revel in the nightlife and stuff, earlier on. And so I think that she's the kind of person who would want to. I get the sense that she wants to. She does look beyond her doors. She does want to. And so earlier, I hope my ambitions thing didn't come off too harsh, because I think that, she is entitled to that. That is what she was promised, and that is what she is supposed to get. And I don't think that she may not be a good queen, but at least see her looking beyond her door.
Mm-hmm. Caleb Haldane.
I think Steve was absolutely right. She wants to relate to them, and that's why she steals from one of them, because she wants to relate to that style of life. And fuck it that she has all of this opportunity in the world, might as well steal from these poor people who are just barely scraping by to really show that she could be just like them. No, Steve-O, you're insane. She doesn't want to be for them. She is purely intoxicated on her own selfishness, and her entitlement mixed with her selfishness really makes this dangerous concoction. And I think it shows that she's selfish in the fact that she had no idea how Sir Criston was going to react to this way. Like, she didn't ever once think about his shoes.
Yeah, right. She totally disregarded how the position she put him in by coming on to him in that scenario. Daniel Stoll?
Yeah, she's definitely very entitled, for sure. But I think kind of what Steve was talking about that I feel like I kind of agree with is that's not 100%. That's not necessarily her fault. I think that like she has been told and a certain story and that she's supposed to be, a certain way. And I think that somewhere in there's a piece of her, like there's a lot of layers to her, I think, but like a layer of her does want to be good, but there's all these other layers of entitlement and all that things, all those types of things. She's also very like, Viserys is not the best guy in teaching her how to be a king or a leader, right? A king or queen. Like she's just a little bit ill-equipped, I think, as well. Not to say that she's not entitled and she has all this opportunity and privilege and all that. That's all totally there. But she's still like, it's hard with the time jumps. She's what, like in her 19-ish, 20-ish? Like, I mean, I was pretty dumb at 19 and 20, so I feel like I can give her a little bit of, I don't know. And again, I like to try to believe in the good in people. So maybe that's just this leaking through a little bit too much here.
I hope you're right. I hope we find out next episode after 10 years, she's aged some wisdom and realized her selfishness and entitlement needed to be turned to empathy, love, and compassion in order to rule the throne. But unfortunately, Daniel, this is not Middle Earth. This is not Harry Potter. This is Westeros. People are in it for themselves. Okay. Even when they have it all, they want more. That's just how it works. That's going to be my final thought on it. I want to really quickly, just for the sake of time, we're going to have to breeze through this next one really quickly, but I just wanted to touch on how Sir Criston is summoned by Queen Alicent to confront the lie. Really fun scene. Just, I really quickly, I just want to acknowledge he's summoned into this thing thinking that she's calling him on one thing. She thinks she's asking him for information, and then he just lets it slip. He's like, oh, my guilt. Again, good person thing to do. You're right. I messed up royally before you go any further. I mean, he was good. If he didn't say anything, he would have been fine. He could have just said he didn't know anything. Would have been fine. But no, the guilt on his conscience has him share this very critical information that he, in fact, had an affair with Rhaenyra, not Rhaenyra having an affair with Daemon, which I imagine we don't really get full insight into what Alicent's thinking, but I'm sure a lot of different thoughts and emotions running through her head at that time. So just really quickly, I want to do a quick, round table. I mean, do you guys have any quick thoughts on how Alicent may use this information in the future, or is this just another knob, as Caleb put it? And I'll start with you, Nick.
Oh, this is the Murray moment, the Murray Povich moment. Like this is at the coronation. Hold up. Boom. She can bust him in and say, look at this like tabloid issue that's just come across where she could sully the name. She could like sow some disharmony with him if she's got this knight who is his vow was submit so much and could present that to the public. I think it's just another tool to use at a later point.
Mm-hmm. Very, very, very good. Caleb Haldane, what are your thoughts here?
I don't think it's a Murray Povich. It's more like a Maury Povich moment.
No.
Yeah. Murray.
Yeah,
no.
Better.
The Murray Povich show. It's like it's a 2-bit show. I don't think it's a very good show. Maury Povich, on the other hand, he is not the father. It is interesting to see where they go, because what does the queen do with this? It's not like she can really ally with Daemon, and So it's really just information she can hold to a later point that maybe she can use as leverage. But it doesn't give her any new allies, and it doesn't give her any new strength in the moment. But it is definitely a knob that can be turned later. And I'm excited to see where this piece of information goes.
Yeah, my thoughts exactly. Nothing substantive this week, but it's a really valuable tool in her tool set for future weeks. Steve-O, any other thoughts here?
Yeah, I don't think that I never got Alicent to sort of that, oh, I'm going to use this for later kind of mentality. I don't think that she's playing the Game of Thrones. I think that she is doing what she thinks she's supposed to do. Okay, I'm supposed to marry. Okay, I'm supposed to give birth. Okay, well, at least my friend is a good person, and she's going to be queen, and I trust her, and she's a good person. Oh, wait, were you with your uncle? That may make you not a good person, and that upsets me. Okay, so wait, you weren't with your uncle. That's what I thought. Oh, wait, you banged your knight? What, now I'm pissed off. And so I don't think she's going to necessarily... I mean, she may end up using the information, but I don't think she's thinking about it in terms of like, oh, now I have something. I think she's like, okay, fuck it, I'm a Hightower. And like, just like, I have to do my own thing because nobody's here with me.
Yeah, well said. Daniel Stoll, any thoughts?
I will say, just to respond to that, I think by the end of, I think at this scene, she's not playing the Game of Thrones, but by the end of the episode, she is playing the Game of Thrones. I think for me, I harped on this last episode. I think that this all is going to tie into a potential Rhaenyra pregnancy. And I think that like, Alicent has actually found herself being the one that's holding the cards. Because she has the truth of what happened that night, whereas other people are going to have this thinking that if she ends up pregnant, it's Daemon. So I think that's the piece that could potentially come in later with this information.
Ooh, pregnancy storylines. That's a very dicey territory for Game of Thrones. We'll see how it goes.
It won't just be Daemon, right? Now we've got the Velaryon boy as well, right? This is
3.
So this will be 3 potential fathers, right?
Well, but here's what's going to be interesting if we go down this road. What's the hair color of the child? Right, we don't know. And not even from the next time. But I'm just saying, Targaryens have one hair color, Velaryons have a different one, and Sir Criston Cole has a very distinct look to him. And of course, if we think back to the original Game of Thrones, there was that whole subplot about Cersei's kids all looked like Lannisters, even though the Baratheon had a very strong bloodline, and that was sort of what fostered and cultivated all of the rumors about how she was sleeping with Jaime, even though it was never publicly acknowledged. So I'm curious.
But clearly, the Targaryens have a strong bloodline, so I suspect we're going to get Targaryen colored hair, and that leaves the question even more open, right?
We'll see. I mean, I think you're right. Targaryens do have the stronger bloodlines, but I'm just curious if that's going to come into play because they've used it in Game of Thrones previously, and I don't think I don't think they exhausted that potential plot line either. Okay, so let's move on here to the King Viserys again, really quickly. He's having a conversation with Lionel Strong, who we acknowledged earlier seems to be giving very reasonable, healthy, kingly advice to his king. Seems very trustworthy, but essentially we have Viserys who's pondering how and if he's going to be remembered. And Lionel Strong's constantly reminding him, it's okay that you didn't win any wars. It's okay that you didn't conquer cities. He's like, it's fine. The fact that you kept the peace should be a huge testament to how successful you were. And all Viserys can say is, what songs will they sing of me? What will they say of thee when the histories are written? So anyway, I just think that paints a really interesting perspective where we've seen Viserys really put a lot of stock into dreams and prophecies previously, and now he seems to be shifting towards, now that obviously his health is clearly in decline, he's putting quite a bit of stock into how are they going to remember me? And I just want to use that as a sort of a segue to ask the question we recently started asking on this podcast last episode, which is, how long do we think Viserys really has on this show? And how will he be taken? I would love to get a fresh take here from the table. Steve, I'm going to start with you on this one.
I don't have a lot on this. I think he's going to last 10 years and 2 days. And I think that if anything other than they've built up, we've watched his disease progress. If a bunch of crows bust in through the window Resident Evil style and peck him to death, If it's anything other than his disease, I'm gonna be mad.
Oh, Steve-O, I think you're going to be mad. I think you're going to be really mad. Nick, what are your thoughts on this? And let me specify maybe. How many episodes do you think he makes it? We're at episode 5 now. Does he make it to 6, 7, 8? Does he make it all the way to 10? Do we get him next season? Like, how many episodes do you think he lasts?
At this point, he's immortal. Like, I just think if he's had whatever 17 diseases he's gotten, whatever he's lived through, he's cut by the throne every other episode. So I think he can't die. I'm saying he sits on it till Aegon. He's there forever.
All right, well,
or maybe one more episode. I pull it all back. I walk all of that back, and I say next episode he's out.
He's out next episode. I think that's a very, very fair prediction. Caleb Haldane.
Yeah, it's the how we're gonna end the next episode, right? We end on his death, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think if he, so we actually discussed in our previous recap episode last week, King Robert died in episode 7. I think it was actually early in the episode, if I recall correctly as well. So I think we maybe have at most 2 more episodes. I mean, he's looking real bad. And I know there's a 10-year time jump, and we can talk about that. Daniel Stoll in next week's episode. But, like, I'm just saying, he definitely seems like he's closer to the end than the beginning. But I will say, Steve-O, I think you're going to be real mad. I think the disease is a red herring. Obviously, it's weakening him, and I think that his death will be blamed on the disease, but I'm fairly confident someone in his inner circle, whether it be Alicent, whether it be Rhaenyra, or even potentially Daemon, are going to somehow kill him and make it look like the disease took him, is my guess.
So I like that does make perfect sense because so earlier when I said I was bummed about the 10-year jump, I wasn't saying I was bummed that you spoiled that for me, because like that's totally fair. I was bummed that we were going to lose the actors that have been playing those roles, because they were fantastic. Mm-hmm. But I think you're right, because especially if he lasts 10 years. If I didn't, without that 10-year jump, I think that he would have had to succumb to the illness. But if he's super ill and goes for 10 years, someone's going to go, we've had enough.
Yeah, totally. They're going to be like, why aren't you dead already? He's going to pull a Walt Jr. from Breaking Bad. Just die already. Just die.
You got no more fingers. You got no more toes. Come on, just fall over dead.
Based on the next time on, you have no more hair. Your hairline has receded all the way back.
You eat 3 Big Macs a day. I don't know how you're still living.
Oh, man.
I feel personally called out.
Oh, goodness. All right. So, Daniel Stoll, I know you and I talked about it last week, but are you going to hold that he's going to make it to episode 7?
No, I think he's probably done in the next episode. I think that this is probably where I stop watching the next time on. I'm really frustrated by that, because I felt like the end of this episode was like oh crap, good thing they got that wedding in, because he's probably dead. And then I immediately saw that, and I was like pretty frustrated that I felt like that moment got kind of, the sadness of that moment got taken from me. So I'm probably done watching those. I said this earlier, like characters could easily look at this and be like, he's probably going to die soon. I can wait it out. But then, as you guys said, well, if after 10 years, like, all right, I'm done waiting it out. Like, it's time to get rid of this guy. So I feel like it has to be the next episode.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. So tune in to next week's podcast when we determine whether or not this entire table of people is wrong, because I think it's going to be a very fun conversation. I kind of wish if we could do it all over again, Daniel Stoll, this season, I would say we should have been made it a segment where we place bets on how many episodes he makes it, because he totally dead in the next couple episodes. All right. So we are going to get to the royal wedding. I'm just going to go through a few different interactions. And in true Game of Thrones series fashion, it's a wedding. There's lots of tiny little exchanges that mean a whole lot. And I don't want to read into each one of those individually, just kind of hit the high points. But first up, the guests arrive and welcome back Jason Lannister, a true Jason through and through. I'll let you watch the episode and decide on your own what that means. But yes, struck me as it continues to be a Jason. We have Lord Royce arrives from the Vale. Apologies, different Lord Royce, but it's, I believe, the cousin of Daemon's dead wife. Arriving nearly last, uninvited, was Daemon, who just strolls in. He's been banished twice, and he just walks in, and the king's like, oh, God, I guess you're here. So let's pull him up a chair to the table. the king's table of all places. And certainly arriving last, but certainly not least, is Alicent Hightower, who sports the beautiful emerald green, Hightower green, instead of the Targaryen colors. We already talked about it earlier. I also want to point out that when she's seated, she refers to Rhaenyra as stepdaughter before sitting. So I just want to circle back on Daniel's point in terms of Alicent. I think she's all in Game of Thrones now. I think she was just totally going along with it up until this point, but she has seen too many of the behind the scenes scandals. She doesn't know who to trust anymore, so she knows the only thing that she can trust is herself and her family. So she is Team Hightower all the way, or so it appears to be. Now, I have to ask though, there were a number of flashy entrances in this episode. So which team do you choose to take the throne first? So you guys are picking, if you're going to be on the throne, which team are you going to be on? Steve, I'm starting with you, man.
It's got to be Team White Walker again. No,
they're coming back.
So one little thing that I noticed about that scene, they did it 2, maybe 3 times whenever somebody came up to the king's table to address the king and the future queen at her wedding. Like, this is all part of her wedding. They didn't look at her. I don't know if you noticed, but they wouldn't make eye contact with her. They would only make eye contact with the king. Very subtle, very cool, like, way to show that. As far as the team that I'm rooting for, I guess I'm team Velaryon. I hope that the king consort Velaryon boy can get over the fact that what happens at the end of the episode, that he can move forward and maybe get some righteousness up in that throne.
All right. Daniel Stoll, which team do you choose?
Before I choose my team, I just want to say, I mentioned this at the beginning of the episode. I have been so mad at Viserys all season, and then last week he finally goes and makes a decision that I'm like, okay, like maybe I don't necessarily agree with your decision or whatever, but he gets rid of Otto and starts playing the game, and I'm like, yes, you're doing something. And then this week his freaking brother walks in after banishing him twice, and he just lets him sit down. Like, I am so upset with Viserys.
At his table, at the king's table, in front of everyone.
I thought he was finally like coming around to like being like able to at least like make some progress, and like no. Anyway, I'm not Team Viserys. I actually surprisingly find myself really being drawn to Team Alicent after her entrance. I think that we've seen her sort of be like a passive character, not have a lot of autonomy, kind of like doing whatever her father says, or trying to being helpful to Rhaenyra, yes, but like not taking a lot of ownership. And I feel like she really takes a lot of ownership the way that she walks in. And it's really hard for me not to be like, yeah, go Alicent, like owning like some of her autonomy and and overcoming like, just doing whatever her father says. But yeah, obviously she's still in support of her father, but she's doing it in her own way. And so I think I'm going to be Team Alicent after this.
All right. Team Alicent. Caleb Haldane.
Yeah, definitely hashtag Chad Lannister, man. What a bro that guy is. What a bro, Comes up to the table, tells some jokes. Man, I love that guy.
He said
I did think Rhaenyra's responses were absolutely hilarious. Just like the subtle, like just like tearing him down. That was great.
Well, I love it because it totally fits in line with the idea that the Lannisters are kind of a joke. They have all this money, like they're extremely wealthy, but before Tywin shows up and forces everyone to respect them, they're kind of a house that no one takes very seriously. Like you said, they're kind of the quote unquote Chad rich kid on the block wearing the fancy polo, not ignoring the woman, being like, yo, King, congratulations on this wedding for your daughter. I'm not going to acknowledge your daughter at all, though. Hope that's cool. It's so weird. I was actually half expecting him to pull out finger guns. All right, Nick, what team are you on here, man?
Oh, it's gotta be Team Targaryen. Look, you gotta go with Rhaenyra. She's gonna redeem. She's basically Dany 2.0. She's going to redeem and be the queen that we needed, that we could have had. Let's be honest, we could have had.
Well,
I don't know why I went like a ghost at the end, but that's fine.
Fine. Are you saying that Rhaenyra would be something of a Targaryen dictator. That seemed to be where Daenerys ended up at.
I'm saying she would be good. She would be what we wanted. Like, I say wanted. I mean, it's not fair to want something from somebody else's work, but, a queen that we could have loved and gotten behind, much like that arc seemed to be going. I think this is a subtle redemption for that character's handling in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah. We're going to have to talk about that one later. Different takes for that character. Okay. Well, I'm on, as always, I'm on team let chaos reign. So Daemon showing up, not giving a shit. Not only that, when someone comes out with an accusation, he's like, what? Got the law on my side because this is patriarchy. Is it bullshit? Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I'm taking advantage of it. I got more money now. What's up? I love it. I love let team chaos reign. Again, reminds me of I don't know if he's as smooth as the Peter Baelish, Littlefinger, or Varys, the Spider, but I kind of like that he's making these moves and somehow is completely untouchable. And again, the last thing I'll say about him is, and it sort of ties into what we've been talking around with Viserys this entire episode. Viserys seems like probably a better king in the sense that he seems like a decent person who doesn't like, murdering people or ruling by fear. Yeah, the thing about that is for a lot of people like Daemon, he sees that as weakness and has absolutely zero respect. So he strolls in and he's like, what's he going to do? Kick me out of the kingdom a third time? He has no respect for his brother whatsoever. And ethically, morally, it's kind of bankrupt, but pragmatically, he's right. Like the king just rolls his eyes and says, yeah, sure, sit at the table with the rest of the royals. It's insane. Anyway.
I think that Daemon does have to kind of get a move on though, because he's going to regenerate like any second.
Yes.
10-year gap. I'm calling it. Daemon's played by Peter Capaldi starting next episode.
Okay, that was good. That's good.
Do it.
That was actually good. You saved it.
Oh my God, we're getting another doctorate here. Hell yes. Hell yes.
So there have been 5 other episodes or 4 other episodes of this podcast. Did anybody make that joke before? Because I got to apologize if they did.
No, that you're the first.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Take that
That's
win.
His first joke. That's his first joke ever.
Take that. Take the win. All right. Well, okay. Just really quickly, because I know we're running a little long. I just have to ask, in general, just from the group, and Daniel Stoll, I'll start with you. What, this sequence I found, me and Daniel Stoll especially hit on this at the beginning. This is a really effective sequence, just from a filmmaking perspective. It had a slow, dramatic build of tension. The actual production values of the choreography of the dances and the music, all of it was really, really top notch. Daniel, what was it about this scene in particular that really stood out to you?
Yeah, I think just the tension building was really done well here. You get that sort of typical sort of idea of a lot of rich, powerful people in a room together are all here to have fun and celebrate, but all of them have their own agendas they're socially trying to make the connections and say the things they need to say without making too much of a fuss. And I thought that the whole time you start to see some of the conflicts start to creep in, and I really love how they ended up, it came to a climax where you have Rhaenyra and Daemon in the middle, and then people surround them, and then you hear screams, but you can't see what's happening. And it could be you go through your head 3 or 4 or 5 different things that could be happening, but you don't know what it is. And so you're just what is it? Just let me see what's happening. Who died? Did Daemon do something to Rhaenyra? Did Rhaenyra do something to Daemon? Did something, blah, blah, blah. And it's when it comes out, it's maybe the one thing you didn't think was going to happen is what's actually taking place with Criston Cole. So I like it. I just really love the way that at least for me, it really worked. And I felt by that point, I was just ready for the explosion to happen. And so the tension building up until that point, I felt was really well done.
Mm-hmm. And you were satisfied with the sort of outcome.
Yeah. I'm fine with it. I know that we've talked a little bit about not having maybe as severe consequences so far. I think maybe that could play out later. But I think even the way that Joffrey approaches Criston Cole, I think even in that moment, and the way that Criston's the way he appears and the way that he seems to be receiving that information, I think is just by the time we got to that huddle, I had kind of almost even forgot about it, but it was, that's the thing that breaks out of all the different things that could be breaking in this moment. That's the one that breaks. And I thought they, built it up to where it worked. And I think it was satisfying.
All right. Caleb Haldane, what was your take on the entire sort of dance dinner sequence?
It's more Criston Cole. I think that it seems maybe a bit out of character for me. Like, you're getting an offer of an alliance, and that's the thing that sets you off. Like, this really denotes that he is now unhinged, that this is a descent that's going to happen fast. If he's in the next 10-year segment, it's going to be a weird sweep under the rug moment, because if this is what sets him off, clearly everything's going to set him off. So how can we say he's going to be alive and well in 10 years? It will be a very weird juxtaposition for where we've left off with him.
Yeah, I mean, he publicly murdered a knight from another house in gruesome fashion. It's kind of amazing. I mean, I honestly don't know where this character's just. Yeah, go ahead.
It's not just that. For me, it's the fact that he went there, right? Like, that an offer of an alliance shows that, okay, people know I must kill him. Like, that means he's unhinged. So that means he's going to make more mistakes in this 10-year gap. Like, we shouldn't have an outcome in 10 years where he's holds some sort of power and is stable again. Like, that doesn't make sense. That's a juxtaposition that I want resolved.
Mm-hmm. Daniel Stoll?
Just to respond to that really quickly, I think you're totally right. I think he's definitely unhinged. I don't think he sees it as an alliance. I think he sees it more as like a threat. But as we talked about earlier with the scene with Rhaenyra, I think he is so, like, he really sees his life as nothing at this point. And I think he goes into that scene basically okay, this will remove a potential threat for Rhaenyra, but also I think he is we see it towards the end. So I think he thinks he's going to die. And so it's I will remove these two, secrets, and so that that will be off the table. Again, unhinged, completely irrational. But I think in that moment, he doesn't see his life as having value, and so when he goes into there, I don't think he's thinking, I'm going to get out of this alive. I think he's thinking, this is my death sentence, but I'm going to take this person that could potentially do harm to Rhaenyra as I go out. I think that was sort of how he rationalizes it in that moment. But I totally agree that it's irrational. I think that we have Alicent seemingly stop him committing suicide later. So that part is I'm unsure about how that part plays out. Mm-hmm. But before that, I think that part makes sense to me.
Okay, Nick, I see you doing a lot of thinking.
It's big thought here. It's big thoughts. No, I agree with everyone on this. I think what everyone's put out so far is a lot of really interesting and valid points to it. I looking at the wedding as a whole, I do think that I have knocked some of their dancing. It's an attack on my sensibilities. But I did find it compelling and interesting. As far as the night being unhinged, and yes, that very much was the case. I think that you can't punch someone in the face, tell her hamburger, and then be like, you're hinged. But I will say, I did find it kind of odd that that happened, and then he's just strolling away. No one no guards came and got him. Nobody you would think at that moment, the next time you saw him, he'd be in stockade.
I think that speaks though perfectly to. I think that scene wouldn't have worked for me except that they had set it up already with the tournament. Is this nobody. They talk about how outside of King's Landing or outside of the Red Keep, it's kind of iffy out there. It's iffy inside the keep. Nobody really seems to give a crap. A fight breaks out at a tourney, someone gets beaten to death, and nobody cares. And I don't think that's an issue with the show or an issue with writing. I think that sets the stage for how nobody respects Viserys. Nobody's really getting any consequences. I think that's the construct of what's going on.
Yeah, there's a huge lack of accountability, and it starts at the top. Viserys doesn't really hold people accountable for their failings. Therefore, the people of Westeros just do the same. They're well, this dude died. That kind of sucks. Not my problem, though, right? We don't need to deal with it.
And we had a sneak peek of that same thing happening at the courtship interviews, right? Where the guy from the crowd taunts the child, and the child just kills him, and all he says is like, "Princess, don't look." Like nothing's gonna happen here.
There's no respect for order really at any point in this show. And I think that to top off what you guys said, I think that they did build the tension perfectly. I was a little annoyed at first before I stopped and thought about it, because I mentioned it earlier as a side comment. I saw it kind of like a Star-Lord moment of like, I felt like it didn't seem like, when I say Star-Lord moment, I'm talking about the Avengers, when they almost win and then Star-Lord loses his shit and then ruins it for everybody. I kind of had that moment of like, oh my God, why couldn't you just keep it together? He was offering you an alliance. And now that I've heard the other perspectives, it does make a little bit more sense. Like, he was barely holding on. He was probably looking for a way to get himself killed, honestly, just like, I got to remove myself in some sort of way. Not consciously, but like subconsciously being like, you know what? I'm just clocking out in a way. So I had a problem with that scene at first, because I thought, why would anybody do that? That doesn't make sense, but it does make some sense now to talk to you guys about it.
I think the big thing for me, it doesn't make sense in any meaningful way, like logically. It's emotionally driven. They've done a great job setting up earlier in the episode that he is an emotional being. He is probably more driven by an emotion, and duty are his two primary sort of, I would say, modes. And he feels as if his duty has been compromised and he hasn't figured out what to do. So the fact that this guy is even implying that Joffrey is even implying that he knows the secret is enough to trigger him to act completely irrationally. So that was sort of my take. He's in a very vulnerable position. Well, with all that said, I think we're about out of time here. Just a couple of things I want to acknowledge before we close out the recap here. Rhaenyra and Laenor do get married, guys. Nothing like getting married in a hall in which a dude was just brutally murdered while the puddles of blood were still on the ground. Nothing like that. It's very appropriate. Game of Thrones wedding. Laenor is still in such shock and anger, he can't even like seal the deal with a kiss, like pretend. He turns the cheek, you know?
He's got blood on his face.
Yeah, he does still have blood on his face.
He still has blood on his face. They wouldn't even give him a towel. Jesus.
They can't afford those in Westeros. I guess not. And then again, before Criston decides to commit suicide and remove himself from the board, Alicent appears to stop him. We don't know where this is going. I'm curious. Just want to reiterate on what we all said earlier, which is Alicent seems to be gathering this information, and it's too soon to say exactly what she's going to do with it. I'm very curious about the next episode, because especially with the 10 years passing, I do get the vibe that Alicent is going to be significantly more politically savvy than she has been in the first 5 episodes so far. Any other thoughts on this episode before we close out the conversation today?
I think we well covered it. There's so much good in it.
The performances, I have to say, were fantastic. And I think that this is something that this show does more consistently. I'm not saying like literally every performance is fantastic, but I think just in a consistent manner, the performances are extremely good. Nobody stands out except maybe for the woman that Daemon was pretending to be his wife. And there's some weird dubbing. Like they've done some ADR with her. They've dubbed over her a bit, and that's a little awkward. But even then, I think the dub is kind of funky, but everybody's performance I'm impressed with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, overall, I'd agree. It's very solid. I mean, not even solid, really outstanding performances across the board. Again, I think it was a great send-off episode for Millie Alcock as Rhaenyra and Emily Carey as Alicent Hightower. They got a lot of really strong material here. I am excited to see what the new actors and actresses bring to the table next week. But yes, again, losing 2 talents like that is quite sad. Caleb, Haldane, or Daniel, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I always think that this is it was just such a sad way to end this episode. I wasn't necessarily brought to tears, but I was just like, damn, like this is Game of Thrones. Like this is how I felt like with the ending of this, and I mean that in a good way, despite me feeling like so sad. Like the way that like you just described, like the way the wedding ends and all that. I just felt like I felt like this is sort of like okay, we're into that, like the Game of Thrones parts of the Game of Thrones are starting to come back that I remember a little bit, but I also think it's different. And I think both of those things are good. So.
All right. Well, with that said, we're going to close out the conversation today by each of us picking a winner for the week, a loser for the week, and a wild card player for the week. Daniel Stoll, I'll start with you for this. Who wins this week, who loses, and who's the wild card?
For me, I had to choose the winner as Alicent. I think she finally, she really comes into her own this episode, and she makes some, begins to play the game. And I really enjoyed seeing that from her. I want to see more of that from her. So I think the winner, more of just like from a character growth standpoint than an actual like gaining of rewards or whatever. I think for me, character growth goes to the winner goes to Alicent. For the loser, I have to go with Laenor and Lonmouth. I mean, God, that sucks. When you like literally your lover dies in front of you and then you have to turn around and get married right after that. Like that relationship, like you said, was so like they seem to have like a lot of deep love and care for each other, and the short amount of time they were able to show us their relationship. So I was just so sad for that relationship to end in that way. And then the wild card, I'm actually going with the strong family. Like I wasn't expecting them to come in and have such, some of these subtle moments, and so I'm going to say them as the wild card because I'm not sure what they're doing, but I'm interested to see where it goes.
All right, Daniel Stoll, thank you for sharing your selections. Caleb Haldane, who do you pick for this week's winner, loser, and wild card player?
Winner, I think Alicent is the biggest mover in this episode for sure. Loser, I feel like it's got to be Criston. I feel like he really lost a lot. He ends up pretty far from his tether, and I think he's a pretty massive. Takes a massive L in this one. He was on the brink of suicide, so I guess that's a loss. As for the wild card, I'm actually. I think this is the same. But not the strong family, just the son there, the hobbled son. What's his name?
Larys.
L, I think.
Larys Strong.
Larys Strong. He's the one who came out with the most interesting positioning, and since his motive is still so hidden from us, he was definitely my mystery card here.
All right. Well said, Steve-O. Who are your selections?
I think that my winner is going to be Rhaenyra because she's getting her wedding. She's it looks to be inches from being queen. Even thought maybe I heard a thump of the body of the king fall during the credits to make me into like, oh, that was it. He's gone. Now, obviously, I know that's not true, but like just thinking about the end of this episode and not the next time, I was like, okay, I think she's got it. I think she's right there. So I'm going to give her the W. The L, I think I have to give to Joffrey because that's a bad way to go. When you think you have, hey, buddy, I know a thing, you know a thing. Let's be friends and make sure that the people we love are doing good. And that dude freaks out and beats me to death. That's an L. And my wild card's going to Daemon because I don't trust his calculus yet. I don't trust it yet. So I think he's moving in directions, but I don't know what directions.
All right. I love that. You don't trust his calculus. That's a really great way to put Daemon. Nick, who are your selections?
Thank you so much, Caleb Omega, for getting to me on this one, because first off, I got to say the winner is definitely the color green. What a push it made at that event. Had every noble in the audience talking. We literally got to see it. Fantastic impression. And walking over to the other high towers, and they're wearing a subtle green as well. Wow, conspiracy alert. Big loser this week, I have to agree with Steve-O. It's got to be Joffrey. No one wants a hamburger helper on how they go out in Game of Thrones. Unfortunately, that was his case, and it took so long. I mean, people were literally pushing for like a solid minute. I was like, was he getting punched this whole time? Kiss my fist, Night of Kisses. I'm sorry. That is a bad way to go. finally, I think I have to round this out when saying the wild card for this episode has got to be horses. Whether or not a man could push a horse over on poor Royce, I don't know. But that horse, let's check its credentials. Maybe it wasn't vetted properly. This might be an assassination by horsedom. Yeah, so that round out my
That sounds like a
list.
Daemon. That sounds like something Daemon would say. Did you check the horses? I think that horse might have killed their assassins.
Check that horse is political.
Well, my winner for the week is actually Daemon. Why? Because I am always going to be team let chaos reign. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know that he knows what he's doing, but he's making moves. He walks out this week with a bunch of land and wealth he didn't have before. And again, continues to show off like his ability to not give a shit and no one hold him accountable. Like, I think it's pretty, again, going back to the one of the big takeaways from episode 4, which is optics matter. Daemon is definitely playing the optics really, really well, I would argue. This week's loser, I have to agree with Daniel Stoll, Laenor Velaryon. I mean, come on. This guy is now not only trapped in a loveless relationship, but the one thing he had going for it was his lover, Joffrey, brutally murdered. It's going to be a real sad life, and he's still pretty young. It's a long time to be in a loveless relationship. And this week's wildcard player for me is actually going to be Alicent Hightower. I would say she's a borderline win, but here's the thing. I still don't think we fully understand what her motivations are and where she's going to play her cards. So for that, I'm saying she's a bit of a wild card this week. And last week, I think we had, and lastly, I want to give a special award for the week to the best party favor, which is Sir Royce from the Vale, who brings accusations only to have it tossed back in his face. I thought that was pretty great. Pretty great party favor. I like to show up to my weddings with accusations to everyone, pointing fingers at them. Daniel Stoll, I was at your wedding. I did, in fact, point my finger and yell at you. You can attest. So it is a thing I like. All right. Well, guys, I think we've gone over time. This has been super, super fun. But let's just go ahead and wrap things up. I just want to acknowledge we're not going to talk about next week's episode, but the next episode is titled The Princess and the Queen. And as we've already mentioned several times, there's going to be a 10-year time jump. So watch the next time or not. I think we're going to be in for a massive shift of the paradigm next week. And I can't wait to see how that shapes up. All right, gentlemen, Red 6 team. This has been so much fun. Thank you for dragging my ass to the mud this entire 2 hours. It's been a blast.
Loved it.
So I'm gonna go around the table. Caleb Haldane, where can we keep up with you and the work you guys are doing at Red 6?
The easiest way to see what we're doing is go to www.red6podcast.com, all spelled out. It's got our socials there, and you can listen to our podcast there. You can listen to our podcast if you search us on any of the podcast apps. So if you search out Red 6 Podcast. But yeah, that I would say the website is the easiest way to get a hold of us.
What are a couple of recent episodes that you think might be of interest to some of our listeners?
Well, I think we've gotten a lot of good buzz on me and Elvira's tits. That's an episode that has done very well. I would say that check that one out. It's a recent one that people seem to like.
All right. There you have it, listeners. Steve-O, how about you? Where can people keep up with you and your work, both on Twitch and also the Red 6 team?
No, I just quit Red 6 after I heard that episode title. So just go to twitch.tv/gutternerds if you want to watch some Star Wars and watch some retro games. Or you can find me on Red 6. I'll still be there.
All right. That's fun. I thought I was worried I broke up the band.
Oh my God, Yoko! Oh no!
On my podcast, I broke you guys up. Yeah. Nick Johnson, where can people keep up with you online, sir?
Oh my gosh! Follow all my ravings on Twitter at Robotical Nick. You can find me there. Follow me there because I will be following you.
Guys, he's literally going to haunt you for the rest of your life.
I'm a ghost.
I don't even know if he's real anymore.
I'm a spirit. I'm haunting your house.
Daniel Stoll, I know you're not really doing the social media as much, but what parting words would you have for listeners who want to support you and the show?
Well, of course, you can always give us a review on whatever podcast app you use. That would be great. You can tell everybody how wrong they were and how I'm totally right about all the positive vibes that I got from this episode. That'd be great. But if you wanted to give me a more personal thought, you can always follow me on Twitter at Daniel Stoll. The number's 23.
All right. And of course, people can find me tweeting about House of the Dragon, film reviews, video games occasionally over on Twitter at CMastersTalk. That's letter C Masters Talk. I'm also doing usually 2 episodes a month of the Cinematic Schematic. That is a film review and analysis show where I talk with a variety of different guests about the latest movies. Our last episode was covering, we just went over several of the big hits from last August. In the pipeline, date TBD, but soon. Guys, I bet you didn't know. James Cameron's Avatar is coming back to theaters, baby. Remastered in full HDR 4K with 10.1 surround sound. I can't wait. I'm pumped. And we are going to do a re-review of Avatar, James Cameron's Avatar, on my podcast, The Cinematic Schematic. And I won't spoil who the guests are, but I did in fact find someone who I respect, who
likes it.
That hurts. That hurts. I like. They have not seen James Cameron's Avatar, okay, and are going to see it for the first time in this re-release. So again, the Cinematic Schematic podcast, or all of my film review and analysis at thecinematropolis.com. And of course, on the Cast Beyond the Wall, you can follow us on Twitter at cast_beyond_GOT or on Facebook at facebook.com/Cast Beyond the Wall. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into this week's recap episode of House of the Dragon. Join us next week when we continue to go beyond the wall. And until then, ask yourself, what will the history say about your podcast?